welcome to the Channel 3 News.
Today we will be discussing the Michigan government support of random drug testing of students in extracurricular activities.
This grants the schools the ability to drug test any student participating in school-related activities.
The government's purpose in this is to establish justice so students are not participating in illegal activities.
This is a state issue, as it is not in the Constitution and does not affect the nation as a whole. Now to Ray with her side of the argument.
Thank you, Alicia. I am for student drug testing. It's important to know that student drug testing is not being used to punish students. It is used for preventing drug use and help students if they need it. It's important to also note that student drug testing in schools does not get students in trouble with the law or suspended from school. Instead, they are taken out of the extracurricular activity until they are known to be drug-free. Most schools implemented drug testing because it was harming and disruptive to the school's learning environment. Most people believe that this drug testing is to use to catch students with illegal drugs, when in reality most students don't use illegal drugs, but instead use prescription drugs because they are more easily accessed. And this leads to, but either way, they both lead to a lifelong addiction. One of the biggest reasons for student drug testing is the benefit of school morale. Students feel safer, make better choices, and are more likely to participate in extracurricular activities when they feel they are all getting a fair shot. In a 2011 study by researcher Dan Romar, he concluded that out of 943 students questioned, 27% had student drug testing programs. He also concluded that girls had the most positive effect when it came to student drug testing, while boys had little to no effect at all in drug use.
Thanks, Ray. However, I am a supporter of the opposite position. Drug testing violates students' privacy. First off, there is no difference in the rates of use between schools that test and schools that don't, so testing students is not lowering the use of drugs in schools. Secondly, testing can cause student-teacher relationships to become strained by making students angry at teachers and coaches who test them. Third, tests cost a lot, $42 per student, so $21,000 for 500 students to test them each once. Fourth, students who participate in extracurricular activities are less likely to have substance abuse problems or engage in crime, and are even more likely to stay in school and get good grades and be more ambitious. So what about the numbers, you say? At schools with drug testing policies, 21% were using drugs, while at schools without drug testing policies, only 19% were. So even though one school tested and one school didn't, the numbers were still very close, and concludes that testing doesn't affect how many students are still going to abuse drugs in any way. This causes wasted money. The legality of random tests for drug and alcohol use is in question, as it may be considered unreasonable search. The court allows tests in cases where, say, a train conductor or pilot gets in a crash, so they can rule out the possibility that they were on drugs. The court is also using tests to prevent use by young people. In an effort to try to prevent this, they allow schools to drug test students in extracurricular activities.
Thanks, Alicia. Now, the core democratic values involved in mine is that the common good requires that each individual citizen have the commitment and motivation to promote general welfare for their community, for the greater benefit for all. Students that participate in illegal activities such as drugs are not doing that. In order for students to work together properly, they must be committed to the good for everyone, meaning no drugs. They also share that obligation to promote the general welfare for the community. Students doing drugs aren't. In order for the students to have a healthy school environment, to learn and grow in there needs to be measures taken for random drug testing should be used to encourage students to stay drug-free in order to participate.
There are a couple core democratic values I would like to touch on as well. First, justice. This value states that people should be treated fairly in the distribution of benefits and burdens of society, the correction of wrongs, and the injuries in the gathering of information and making of decisions. This applies to the situation as the students are being treated unfairly. Testing students without cause is illegal, and it is unfair that just because they want to participate in a extracurricular activity, they are being treated as if they had done something wrong. The tested students are being unfairly burdened by society. Second, equality. All citizens have political equality, and citizens are not denied these rights unless by process of law. Legal equality, and should be treated as equals before the law. Social equality, so there should be no class hierarchy put in place by the law. economic equality, which tends to strengthen political and social equality, leading to extreme economic inequality and should be avoided. For social and legal equality, all must be treated equally, but only testing certain students violates this equality and makes it very unfair for the ones being tested, and as there are probably many students not tested doing drugs.
The issue of random drug testing was first brought up in the Verona School District versus Acton case of 1995. The policy that the Verona School District wanted to push on the public was to require all athletes to take a random drug test in order to participate in sport activities. The challenge from Acton was it was unconstitutional, in violation of children's rights to privacy. The Supreme Court decided that student drug testing for athletes was held constitutional. It had been viewed as reasonable search because it had legitimate government interest to promote the health of minors. The decision was held 6-3.
Even though students don't get in trouble with the law, it causes their relationship with the school and coach to become strained. It makes it seem as if the student is not trusted. Testing also doesn't affect the number of students who will do drugs anyway. As mentioned before, were two schools, one that tested and one that didn't. There was only a 3% difference in the number of kids doing drugs. The Fourth Amendment prohibits unreasonable search and seizure. Randomly drug testing students, many claim, is against this amendment, as they should have the right to say no. Without a reason to drug test someone other than the sole fact that they are in an extracurricular activity goes against this amendment.
In contrast to random drug testing violating privacy of students, when they sign up for a sport, they are giving their commitment to the sport. Like at Midland High, where we have to sign sheets saying that we will not drink or do drugs. By signing that sheet, we are signing away our right to privacy.
Students feel it is an unfair interference with their privacy. In the cartoon, we see the student having negative thoughts about the tests, as he isn't trusted to not do drugs, so he can't do sports. He jokes about not being able to do school next. This begs the question of how far will this go?
This political cartoon can be used to show how students using drugs set of mind, like their thoughts, shift from schooling to drugs, and that's what they focus on. And that they only focus on drugs, they don't focus on their schooling, and it can affect them in school. And it's the same with sports and other extracurricular academic activities. So it is better to have drug testing to pinpoint which ones need help and to prevent kids from starting drugs. Thanks for watching.
Channel 3 out.